And we are live on YouTube, and I'm going to let everybody in. All right, welcome everybody. This is the Renters Alliance Renter Town Hall. We'll get started in just a few minutes. Thanks for joining. You're just joining us. This is the Renters Alliance Renter Town Hall. Thanks for coming. We'll get started in just a few minutes. We'll give it just another minute or so. Takes a couple to let folks in the door on Zoom, and then we'll get started. This is the Renters Alliance Renter Town Hall. Welcome everybody. Okay, let's give it one more magic number and then we will begin. Okay, let's get started. Good evening, everyone. My name is Matt Losack. I'm co-founder, executive director of the Montgomery County Renters Alliance. With me this evening is our staff, Emily Towie, outreach coordinator, Tim Huang, spelled Tom if we misspelled it. Tim, you can change it if you like. Pat Beckham, our outreach coordinator as well, and special guest Sharon Wilkerson, and I believe we'll be joined also by Dr. Gilberto Zelaya later in our discussion. A few things, if you have any questions or concerns, please put them in the chat. Staff will be looking in the chat to make sure that we get to your questions and concerns as we go. The town hall is being recorded on YouTube, so if you miss anything, you can watch it again. let me just say that we're going to have a discussion tonight on first on the rent stabilization program that is anticipated to be taking effect. We hope now, we've heard through the grapevine, maybe in early June. That is what I've been told from the county council, that they expect the regulations to come over the end of May, and they are going to prioritize them for consideration and vote in early June. Of course, unfortunately, we've heard deadlines multiple times, and multiple times those deadlines have been missed. So we are watching very closely to see when that happens. We are as frustrated as every renter out there and others that this important legislation has not yet taken effect. Even though we got a vote last July and a signature from the county executive last July, but the legislation does not take effect until the regulations are fully developed and approved of by the county council. Today, the Renters Alliance with our partners, the Public Justice Center based in Baltimore, they are the lawyers who represent low-income folks facing violations of their rights, filed a lawsuit against Arrive Wheaton Apartments in Wheaton. In my experience, and perhaps others, it is unfortunately the worst experience we've ever had with any property management company in Montgomery County and perhaps beyond. They have abused the tenants' rights. They have retaliated against tenants. They have tried to obstruct the formation of a tenants association, torn down tenants association signs, tried to obstruct the use of the community room or charge a fee for the use of the community room, even though the law specifically allows tenants to use the community space on a property once a month at no charge for tenant organizing. We fought back those obstructions, but still they went after the tenants who are organizing the tenants association with eviction. And so we held a press conference to announce the lawsuit that we filed on behalf of one of the leading organizers of the Tenants Association, Mr. Elsie Walker. But we also know that the lawsuit is designed to refer to everyone else in the building who has also suffered this abuse. I'm proud to say that I am also been threatened with criminal prosecution if I enter the property manager's office on the property. I've never had this happen to me ever. I've never seen other tenants in the building who are also, quote, banned from the property manager's office for going down and complaining about sloppy record keeping, poor maintenance on the property, or again, for obstructing the use of the community space or demanding promised or required services. Never have we seen that. We've seen spats, we've seen people get angry, we've seen people, claim that somebody's being rude to them or all of that, but we've never seen letters going out saying you are banned from the office, and if you come into the office, you will be prosecuted for criminal trespassing. In my case, we had reached out on multiple occasions over the last 2 years because the new property owners and their management company, Red Tail, had, upon arrival, we had received multiple complaints from tenants about being treated rudely and without dignity and respect, and the sense that they were targeting low-income folks, people of color, people with HOC vouchers and subsidies. And we had looked into it over the last 2 years, and things just got worse and worse and worse. We tried to rectify the situation, of course, by reaching out to the property staff and alerting them that their behavior is inappropriate. And at one point, I went into the office after they tried to block the formation of the Tenants Association. And I must say, believe me or not, I went in professionally, amicably. I tried to explain to the property manager, Ms. Alyssa Cortillo, that tenants have a right to form tenants associations. It is in the law, a law that we fought very hard to strengthen. And I handed her very cordially the law so she could read it, and she crumpled it up and threw it in the trash. So that was our experience with them. And soon thereafter, I got a letter saying that I was the bad guy and that I'm banned from the office. I've dealt with a lot of property managers, and I've had some good relationships with property managers and landlords, and some tense ones, and some very challenging, difficult ones, but never have we ever been banned from an office and threatened with criminal prosecution, which, by the way, we're not even sure they have a right to do anyway, because the law also says that tenants have a right to be represented, be supported by representatives of their own choosing. And the Renters Alliance, this organization, has been around for more than 15 years. And we believe that renters have that right. And that right also may include going into the property manager's office to demand promised or required services, to take a look at their ledger, or to make a complaint or alert them to something in the building that's going wrong, elevator's not working, a leaky pipe, or something. And we think that they have the right to do so. But we decided not to tweak the property manager's nose any more than that. We tried to reach out to her and her supervisors and the corporate managers above her. They declined to satisfactorily resolve the issues with the tenants in the building. We said, wouldn't it be better to come up with a resolution where the tenants are happy and paying their rent rather than you paying their lawyers to attack us and to attack the tenants? And apparently they decided no, lawyers were a better idea. So we responded with lawyers, and now we filed suit. And I think it's going to be a very expensive headache for Arrive Wheaton. We cannot guarantee that we'll be successful and with any lawsuit. We're confident that we have justification, as is the Public Justice Center. That's what they put in the lawsuit. But we have a long row to hoe, and it's going to be difficult, but it will be an expensive one for the property management company and the owners. And hopefully cooler heads will prevail, and they'll come to their senses and decide that it's better to take rent from long-term tenants than to harass them and threaten them and pay lawyers to go after them. So we'll see what happens. I'm going to put the press conference we had this afternoon in the chat so people can see for themselves what took place this afternoon. And there'll be other news coverage. I believe Channel 9 will cover the conference tonight at 11 o'clock. Good old MC Media, our local media coverage, did an excellent story today as well. And I'm going to put that in the chat right now. And I expect we'll see also more stories in the coming days from the other reporters who have expressed an interest. Today was a bit of a crazy day for reporters. There were multiple press conferences and news all over the place, from the college protests to the press conference with the Democratic Hispanic groups in Silver Spring, and another one from Delegate Jared Solomon, who had passed some legislation and was signing it into law, I believe, this afternoon, if I got that right. But I know there was another press conference. So it's been a very busy news day. So we're really grateful to the press that did come out, and quite a few of them did, and covered this story, from Telemundo, Channel 9, MC Media, and so on. So all of you need to understand that Arrive Wheaton is unfortunately just one egregious example of what we're seeing in many more properties around Montgomery County. We are working very hard, urging the county, our Office of Landlord and Tenant Affairs, to be stronger and have more teeth in the matter of enforcement, so that we don't have to go all the way down the road to a lawsuit and to the courts. But that's what we've been working on for a long time. And we haven't come very far, but I can tell you what we have done has been considered revolutionary in a county and a state that didn't think renters had much rights at all, much less any right to ask for our rights. And that is changing thanks to our work and the work of our partners. So with that, let me now turn to our new friend and a new employee to the Department of Housing and Community Affairs, who's been given the enviable task of heading up the Renter Stabilization Program. once the law takes effect, which it has not yet, but she will be heading up the team that enforces the regulations once enacted, and making sure that landlords are abiding by the rent stabilization program. So describe that, and to introduce herself is the program manager for the rent stabilization program for the Department of Housing and Community Affairs, Sharon Wilkerson. Welcome, Sharon.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Sharon Wilkerson. I'm the program manager for, as Matt said, thank you so much for the introduction. My manager, who is the lead, is our department head or our office head, Paulina Melvin, is online as one of the attendees. So I'm here today just to give you all a very brief presentation, a very general overview about the rent stabilization program. As Matt has said, we are still reviewing the regulations, so there are things that may change. So I am trying to just give you all like a general overview. Please give me one moment. I'm going to share my screen. Oh, I'm sorry. The host has disabled attendee screen sharing. Sorry.
We shall change that. Hang on one sec. All right. Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. Okay. Can you all see the screen? Yes.
Yeah.
Yep, we
Yeah.
can see. Yep.
Yes, we can see it.
Thank you. Okay, good evening. So I'm just here. So rent stabilization was brought to the county through Bill 1523. It was enacted in July, and we had a public comment period that ended at the beginning of March. So as of now, the current status is the office is reviewing all of the comments. We had a large volume of comments. So we're trying to comb through all of those and give careful consideration to each and every one of them and consider them for certain changes in the regulations. Once that's done, we'll pass this over to the county council and the county executive so they can approve it, and then they'll be enacted, and we're really excited for that. So the main purpose of rent stabilization is to stabilize the rents in Montgomery County, ensuring affordability for renters, while also ensuring landlords can have a fair return to maintain the long-term health of those buildings. So just a little bit of the overview of the actual rent increase. So our regulations were modeled after Washington, D.C. and the city of Tacoma Park. So we kind of pulled things from there and tried to tailor those to meet the needs of Montgomery County. So the actual allowable rent increase that will allow, it's a formula. So that would be the CPIU plus 3%. With a limit of 6%. So the CPIU is the Consumer Price Urban Index. It is a number put out by the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. So it can be, that number varies every year. So there is some years it's like 2%. There are other years it could be something like maybe 5%. So that's why we have the cap that if ever it's larger, if it's ever larger, your rent should increase by no more. Your allowable annual rent increase should be no more than 6% each year. We are going to release that information on our website every year, and the allowable rent increase will be valid for 12 months from July 1st to June 30th of the following year. So now I'm going to touch on quickly about new leases or lease renewals. So there is an option there. I want to touch on a quick concept called banked amount. It's something similar they have in the city of Tacoma Park. So that kind of just pertains to if a landlord decides to not take the maximum increase allowed for rent 1 year, they're allowed to bank that amount for future years. However, that banked amount can be no more than 10% of the rent charge. So they can bank as much as they want, but if they don't use it, essentially, if they don't use that before it gets more than 10%, they lose whatever. They're not allowed to charge more than that. So the the landlord is allowed to increase the landlord is allowed to increase the rent each year by the annual rent increase plus the banked amount to exceed no more than 10%. The landlord is allowed to increase the rent of a unit no more than once in a 12-month period. And a notice of rent increase must be delivered in writing to the tenant at least 90 days before the date of the rent increase. So there are a few exemptions that would, a few conditions that would exempt a unit from being under rent stabilization. So the main ones are newly constructed units that have been offered for rent for less than 23 years. If there is either like a natural, like, you know, an individual person or the estate or trust of someone who has passed, and they have two or fewer units within the county, those 2 units are exempt from rent stabilization. And the biggest one I want to touch on is a unit subject to regulatory agreement with a government agency that restricts the unit to low and moderate income tenants. So this is specifically for unit-based programs such as like LIHTC or any other income restricted type of program. So this would not apply to tenant-based programs such as Section 8 or the Housing Choice Voucher Program. So there's a few other here. Airbnbs are exempt, dormitories, ADUs, nursing homes, things of that nature. The next slide. So in addition to those exemptions, there are a few petitions that a landlord could apply for in order to increase rent plus what is already permitted. So the first one is capital improvement. So that is if the landlord is trying to, say replace the elevators or replace the windows of the building or things like that. Fair return. The fair return would be the landlord would have to prove that the rent increase is required to offset the operating expenses and is comparable to return on investments in other enterprises with similar risks. So that means that, if the landlord says, hey, the rent, what I'm charging is not allowing me to maintain the building to take care of its conditions, that would be an option where they could file for fair return. And the next one would be substantial renovation. So that would be something that's on a larger scale than a capital improvement. The substantial renovations are permanent alterations, and the total cost of those has to be at least 40% of the value of the building. So again, those would be larger scale renovations than compared to a capital improvement. So we're coming up on the last slide. So DCHA is also reviewing and editing their regulations based on fees. Our main goal is to try to eliminate those junk fees that people are seeing, such as like those one-time admin fees, technology fees, or things like that. So some of the fees that we are looking to regulate, this is not an inclusive list. We're going to, this is in work. So, but as of right now, we have application fees, pet fees, lost key lockout fees, parking fees, and internet and cable fees. And so while I can't give all the fees that we'll have included, what I can say is that the language of the regulations will be written as such so that it says any fee that is not included on this list is not permitted to be charged. So what we will have is just whatever we have listed is what the landlord is permitted. So if you are a tenant who sees some charge and you're not sure if it's not on the regulations, then it's not something that they can force you to pay. So that is what I have for right now. I am really grateful for the opportunity to be here. We are working hard to get the regulations passed. Our main goal right now, I understand people are very eager. Our goal is we're taking our time so that we can make sure that we consider everybody's needs, make sure that that the tenants are protected, and also that we write the regulations in a way that they can withstand the test of time. So we don't find any loopholes or anything that we miss that will require the process of bringing forth an amendment or things of that nature. So that concludes my presentation for tonight. We are, again, still in the process of setting up a lot of our office communication. So for now, if you have any questions, please reach out to MC311. They have, some information to speak with you all. And if not, they'll pass it along to someone in our office, and we will be more than happy to talk to you. Thank you guys very much.
Thank you, Sharon, for that overview. There are a couple of questions in the chat, but I just wanted to circle back on a couple of things just so people understand where the Renters Alliance comes from. We obviously wanted a much tighter rent cap. The 6% is a bit high for us. We wanted 3%. We fought the good fight, but that didn't happen. The 23-year exemption was something that was an amendment brought in by Councilmember Dawn Lutke. We opposed that. We believe in the principle that new investment in a new property, that anyone who does that should make their money back and make a profit. So we understand a certain amount of time for an exemption for that to happen. But the 23 years seemed arbitrary to us. We thought 10 years seemed a whole lot more reasonable. And if the developer or the landlord could show that they hadn't made their money back or made a reasonable profit, that they would be given an extension. But again, we fought that fight and we lost. Dawn Lutke won. And another one that Dawn Lutke put in was the small landlord exemption. From the Renters Alliance standpoint, we believe that all landlords have similar responsibilities for stable, affordable, quality housing. So I don't get why a small landlord has the right to be less responsible than a large landlord. Nevertheless, the county has the law as it was signed, and as Ms. Wilkerson has gone through, there are going to be regulations. Again, this regulation and this law has not passed the council yet. The law passed, but the regulations have not, and therefore it has not taken effect yet. I know I will add to what Ms. Wilkerson said about everybody being eager. Unfortunately, I think there are many people who are actually desperate, seeing their rents going up in the double digits that may in fact price them out of their homes before this law can take effect. So we are more than just eager. LIHTC, by the way, stands for Low Income Housing Tax Program. And Sharon, there is a specific question, which I don't have an answer to, which is, are MPDUs covered by this?
So MPDUs are exempt from rent stabilization because that would be a unit-based program. So I believe, in my understanding, again, things are in flux. My understanding is those are exempt because those already have limits in the amount of rent that they can charge based on people's income. So those already have their own regulations. So adding, that's what I think.
We're getting questions about the fees. Let me just warn everybody, we don't know, and neither can Ms. Wilkerson. She would be very careful not to say anything either, because we don't want to get anybody's hopes up or give the wrong information out. But I can say, based on what I know of the fees, that they are working very hard to make sure that landlords do not circumvent the rent stabilization program by charging excessive fees as a way to avoid the rent cap. So that is very much understood by the council and by the county executive and by the Department of Housing and Community Affairs. So we are tracking this and we will keep you informed. And Ms. Wilkerson, we would be grateful if you could come back when this finalizes so that you can give us a PowerPoint that says this is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I would love that. And, I'm always here to come back with a very nice and extensive, detailed PowerPoint for you all. So you guys will be first on my list. Thank you guys so much.
Thank you for that honor. Well, very good then. If there's any other questions for Ms. Wilkerson, now would be the time. Is there anything, staff, that we see for her?
Yeah, I had one. So as far as like the fees go and like the other parts of the regulation, so if a building is exempt from rent stabilization, let's say they're only 5 years old, are they also going to be exempt from the fees and such? Or will that apply to them, but the cap won't apply to them?
So it's my understanding that they will be also exempt from the fees, but I know I have your email. I can double check on that. But I believe they would also be exempt from the fees because that's also under the rent stabilization regulations.
So you're thinking if like they're exempt for any reason, like they're 5 years old, they're gonna be exempt from everything in these they're all rents. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah, unfortunately, I think that's exactly right. But we'll wait for confirmation.
Thank you.
Again, unfortunate. And by the way, what that means is not that if your building was built 22 years ago, you've got one more year. If it was built this year, you have 23 years. So just remember that's how that's supposed to work. The other thing I want to remind everybody of, which is a good segue, if there are no other questions for Ms. Wilkerson, do we have anything else? Okay, then as a segue to the next thing, that this is legislation that came about by the advocacy of the Renters Alliance and by many other organizations and individuals in Montgomery County, where renters are nearly 40% of the population. And as we like to say, renters vote. And so, this law is as it is now, but down the road, it could be strengthened with legislation. And that requires elected officials knowing that they are being influenced by people who vote for them or against them, and who support certain policies. So something to keep in mind as we go into our next, and Sharon, if we go off of share screen for you, if you don't mind.
Sorry about that.
Not at all. And go into our next guest, who is going to talk about the importance of voting and the importance of and information on how to vote and early voting, and everything else having to do with voting in Montgomery County and in the state of Maryland. He is an expert on it. He is the finest public speaker in Montgomery County government and a good friend. And we love him to death, and we bring him on every time we possibly can to encourage renters to vote. So with that, it is Dr. Gilberto Zelaya of the Montgomery County Board of Elections. Gilberto.
Hey guys, how are you? So thank you for having me today. It's kind of busy. Today's the second to last day of early voting. It's been crickets, kind of quiet. So it's very important that I see about 26 individuals logged on today. So I'm going to leave you with some homework. Tomorrow's the last day of early voting, okay? As of yesterday, we had about close to 13,000 individuals vote early. Kind of low, kind of weak. And so, considering the amount of time and effort and also the taxes that you and I pay, I think it behooves everyone on this call, in this Zoom session, to contact or text 10 individuals to encourage them to vote if they have not yet requested a vote by mail ballot. Saturday alone at the White Oak Community Center, from the hours of 7 to 8, 21 voters showed up to vote. That is painful. And on, when was it? The day before yesterday, I was at the Nancy Dasick North Potomac Community Center just to observe. And I got there at 7, and the first voter walked in at 10:37. So that's painful to say the least. So I want to instill in all of you, like I said, there's 26 of you. If you multiply that by 10, that's at least 260 individuals that you could contact to hopefully encourage them to vote tomorrow, the last day of early voting. We have 14 early voting centers. Hopefully, you all received your trustee sample ballot about a month ago. Obviously, if you are a registered Democrat, it'll be blue. If you are a registered Republican, it's red. And if you're unaffiliated, no labels, libertarian, green, and all the other parties under the sun, you will get yellow. It's very important to understand that Maryland has closed party primaries. Full disclosure, we don't make the rules. We follow them, just like Monopoly, there's rules. And we understand that a fourth of Montgomery County's electorate is unaffiliated. If you have a concern, the fact that you cannot vote a party primary ballot, contact your elected officials. I'm certain that you guys have a listserv. I would say contact them, because from our end, we just have to follow the rules as designated by the Maryland State Board of Elections and the legislature. We have 14 early voting centers. They will be available from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. We have not had one line. All of the past 7 days has been very, very quiet. I don't know if Alan Bowser is he connected? he was the first one. I think he was the first person in Montgomery County to vote early. He was there really early. So I admire that tenacity, but I really encourage you all to vote. With voting by mail, I have some numbers to share. Montgomery County has
Actually,
about 600.
Gilberto?
Yeah.
I was the second one to vote. He pushed me out of the way so he could be first.
He clipped you, hit you in the knees, and he pushed you aside. So Maryland has about 687,000. I mean, Montgomery County has about 686,000 registered voters. 687,000. Now, as of the 7th of May, we've received about 133,000 mail-in requests, which means they either are on the permanent list or they requested to vote by mail. We have received so far in-house 40,000. Okay, so 40,000, and we have canvassed about 22,000. So we're getting through them, but we are asking our voters not to wait until the 14th of May to return your ballot. Remember, the legislature allowed us to pre-canvass mail-in ballots 8 days before early voting. And so we've had to reschedule numerous canvass dates because we just don't have enough to create batches, complete batches by ballot style or precinct to canvass, at Montgomery College. All of this information and canvass live stream, and you're more than welcome to come and visit in person so you could observe that component of the election process at Montgomery College at the Germantown campus, the Bioscience Education Center. We're there from 10 to we're scheduled from 10 to 6, but we've been finishing around 2 to 4 because we're going through those mail-in ballots quickly. All of the schedules on our website, which is 777vote.org, 777vote.org. If you could put that, man, I'm gonna get my keypad. Okay.
Is there an area code?
Excuse me?
Is there an area, 777?
So that's 777 vote is our website.
Oh.
Let me see. Hold on, let me put it on our website. 777 votes.
I put up the Montgomery County,
Yes, the Montgomery County Board of Elections, and
Yeah.
and the canvas calendar is updated there. I
There you go.
believe our next canvas will be on Saturday. Moving forward, tomorrow's the last day of early voting, and then we're canvassing. The last opportunity will be on Election Day, which is Tuesday, May 14th. On the back of your sample ballot is the corresponding Election Day polling place you should report to. Now, as you know, Montgomery County's traffic is dismal. It's painful to say the least. And if for whatever reason you're running late and you cannot make it to your polling place, your designated polling place, go to the nearest polling place and you will need to vote a provisional ballot. And then we will ascertain to why. And if we need to, we'll make the recommendation to our Board of Canvassers to accept your ballot in full, in part, or reject. Because there's about 700 different ballot styles, we want to make sure that you vote the corresponding ballot. I live in Clarksburg. I have family members in Silver Spring. Their ballot looks totally different than mine, especially if there's a party affiliated ballot or an unaffiliated ballot. So do your part. If your dog or you recycled your sample ballot or your dog ate it and you can't locate it, grab your cell phone and text the word check to 77788. And this is probably the only time that you'll hear a speaker ask you to take your cell phone and text yourself the word check to 77788. And there you could ascertain where you would need to vote on Election Day if you desire to do so. If you are voting a mail-in ballot, you can text the word track to the same number, 77788, to identify where in the process your mail-in ballot is, whether it was sent out, whether we received it in-house, whether it's been canvassed. So you text the word track to 77788, and you could identify and ascertain in what process your mail-in ballot is at. The other thing you could do as well, if you need to identify the nearest ballot drop box, Montgomery County has 58 of them strategically placed around the county. You could text the word box plus a zip code. I'm just typing this in to 77788. Just make sure that there's a space after the X and before the number 2. It only works within Montgomery County. It's not a statewide system that's specific to Montgomery County. So you could identify the closest drop box to you or polling or post office locator. So you can return your mail-in ballot. Make sure you send that as soon as possible, but most definitely by Tuesday, May 14th. However, if you live in a neighborhood where there's one of the blue UPS boxes, or there's like a steel mailbox in your neighborhood, and if you know that the postmaster or the officer comes in at 3 in the afternoon, do not deposit your ballot in that box, let's say at 5 p.m., because they're not going to pick up that ballot until the 15th of May. And when it's stamped at the office, it's going to be late and we're not going to incorporate or introduce into the canvas. So you just shot yourself in the foot by not doing your part. So if you have that ballot and you're not near a drop box, by all means, take it to the post office, but before they close. And usually they close around 5. So you got to take those little nuances, those particulars and seriously, because you don't want to shoot yourself in the foot and have your ballot not counted because you dropped it off in the neighborhood blue collection bin, the USPS collection bin, or your collection box in your apartment complex or in your neighborhood. So
But
those are
Dr.
kind of the
Z,
little nuances.
Dr. Z, for those of us who live on the cutting edge of being almost late, they could still always go to the post office on that day, right up until when the post office closed, and get it stamped for that day. Is that correct?
Correct. I would walk it in to the post office, get in line and have them postmark that specific date. Don't drop it in a box, or don't assume that there's a box next to the postmaster or the officer that could sit there until the next day. They may collect it, put into another collection bin, take it to central, and it won't get stamped. So make sure that you visibly see them stamp it. But there's 58 drop boxes across the county, and there's one close to you. Every high school has one. All of the 14 early voting centers will have them, and then specific community centers, etc. So, and also the Montgomery College. We added 3 drop boxes at each of the Montgomery College campuses. In 2020 and 2022, we had 55. Now we have 58. So we're essentially running a mini post office. And every day we are sending bipartisan teams to pick up and retrieve mail-in ballots daily, including Saturday. So if you drop off your mail-in ballot today or tonight, I guarantee you it will be picked up tomorrow morning before 10:30, 11 in the morning. So do your part. It's going to rain tomorrow. Supposedly it's supposed to be a really heavy downpour. And so if you could, obviously you won't be able to squeeze the next 15 minutes to go to a early voting center, but make your vote plan. And I tell voters, if you're the type of person that has the patience to sit on Route 50 in August heading to Ocean City before you go over the Bay Bridge, then you have the energy to make a vote plan and vote. Other than that, we're always looking for poll workers, even though we are pretty much set for the primary. If you're interested, please text the word SERVE, SERVE, to 77788. You could earn up to $250 a day for service. I'm gonna be honest, full disclosure, it's not a job. It is a long day. The polls open at 7, they close at 8 p.m. We do have part day, not part-time, part day positions, which are from 6 to 2 and from 2 to close. And we do this up front because if you're looking at the 250 and once you divide it by the number of hours in preparation, you'll be very disappointed because it's way lower than minimum wage. It's like 1980 minimum wage, okay? So I don't want you to be disappointed, assuming you're going to put a down payment on a new car or something, serving. But we do need volunteers. We need also bilingual competency. We welcome all parties. We really need your help. And this is a great opportunity if you have younger siblings, nephews, nieces, grandkids that are 16, as long as they meet the state requirements to register to vote, which is 16, have U.S. citizenship and live in Maryland. They could also serve as election workers, and then they too can earn some SSL hours or the stipend. And lastly, we do have our Future Vote program, which we're the only county in America that brings in students as young as 6th grade to volunteer as election day aides. We have about 700 students trained and vetted to serve in the community. We still had about 1,500 slots open. So I'll work with Matt, and once the recruitment window opens in September for the general, if you can help me disseminate that information to your advocates and within your networks to get more kids involved in the process. And the premise of the program is as they age, once they reach 16, we register them to vote and we encourage them to serve as poll workers. And since I started the program 2 decades ago, I've been blessed to work with over 50,000 students, 35,000 family members, and we've been able to recruit about 10,000 high school students to serve in that capacity. And in closing, Montgomery County, because of the program, has one of the youngest poll worker force in America. The average age of poll workers across the country is about 63, 64. Montgomery County float between, depending on the election, 48 to 51. So we have one of the youngest poll worker force in America. Considering our size, we're considered a large jurisdiction. And we've been blessed to leverage the Future Vote program to incorporate younger blood into the process, and also to teach the students and their family to be lifelong voters. So that's kind of high level overview of everything. Make a vote plan. You have tomorrow, early voting. You have election day. And the last thing is we have same day voter registration. So if you missed the advanced voter registration deadline of the April 23rd, you could tell your family, friends, and neighbors that they could take a Maryland driver's license, permit, or ID, or a bank statement, lease agreement, governmental documents, pay stub, utility bills from the utility bills that has your name and current Montgomery County address. They could register to vote and they could vote that same day. So I thank you for this opportunity. I know it's a lot of information, but make a vote plan.
Dr. Z, thank you very much. You guys do tremendous work. We're so proud of the work that you do and all of your colleagues at the Montgomery County Board of Elections. And with all of these innovative programs that engage citizens, young and old, in the voting process, I can say from the renter standpoint, Renters Alliance standpoint, how important it is for renters to vote and to listen to these candidates, to get their views on policies, obviously important for renters, but in this day and age, obviously policies and points of views that strengthen our democracy are also very much on the ballot this year. Dr. Z, can you also, just for the sake of long-term planning, since you're talking about we're at early voting and early voting is over tomorrow, but when is the actual election take place, and what can people still register to vote for November and all of that?
Yes, so the actual primary election day is Tuesday, May 14th. So it's this coming Tuesday. We have about 240 odd polling places across the county. Obviously, I mentioned that you have your sample ballot, and on the back of your sample ballot is noted where you should present yourself to vote on election day. If for whatever reason you misplaced it, you could text the word check to 77788 to ascertain your polling place. However, because of time or traffic and you're nowhere near your corresponding polling place, you could go to any polling place to vote a provisional ballot. Once again, we also have same-day voter registration. So let's say you're a new tenant in a new apartment complex. You have your lease. You're new to the county, or you moved from a different part of the county or the state of Maryland. You can't really identify where your polling place is, because when you look yourself up, the previous information will come up, right? So what you could do is you can ask your neighbors, right? Or a loved one maybe who did update their registration, ask them to look themselves up with that address, and then you could figure out, oh, okay, I have to go to Blair High School or to Clarksburg High School. And that's kind of a way to kind of like figure out where you should vote if you're new to an apartment complex or home. And just take your lease agreements, a bank statement, something that has your current Montgomery County address. Or If you moved within Montgomery County and you can't ascertain, you could also go to your previous address or your previous polling place. But you should definitely, on election day, you could update your voter registration. But you just need to figure out the correct polling place because you want to get the correct ballot style. Because
And
those-
once the primary is over,
Once the
which we will
primary is
know
over,
after the
then the
14th,
books
then
will
we
open
have-
after. Yeah, the books were open after certification. So usually certification is about 2 to 3 weeks after election day. Once the books open, we'll do an advisory. We'll post on social media, and then you could log on and you could register online. You could update your registration. There's multiple ways of doing that. And then we'll share that with the Renters Alliance to distribute that to your renters. So it's really important that you do update. And something really critical, if you are, a lot of times renters move within the same building, right? So let's say they're expecting twins, so they'll move from, let's say, apartment inefficiency to a 2-bedroom apartment, right? So even though the address, let's say it's 101 Main Street, but it's no longer apartment 101, it's apartment 301. That 301 for us, that's a change of address, even though it's in the same building. And that's important because, for example, the sample ballot, any publication, anything that's sent by the Maryland State Board of Elections or the Montgomery County Board of Elections will not be forwarded to the new apartment number. It's in the same apartment, but it's not going to be forwarded. So make sure that when you can, once the books open, that you do update your voter registration, or you do that on election day on May 14th. If not, do it once the polls open and you'll be ready for the general elections come November.
Barbara, I think the point is that early voting is voting you do before election day. So they have an early voting program. The last day to early vote is tomorrow. Election day is May 14th. That's next Tuesday. So there'll be no voting after tomorrow until election day, which is Tuesday.
Correct.
But Dr. Z, if you could also, for those people who don't vote in the primary or haven't registered yet, but are definitely probably going to finally watch all those commercials and decide to vote in November. When is election day in November, and do all the same rules apply in terms of registering to vote?
Yes, the same day voter registration is it's in law. So the same options you will have, or renters or individuals will have, leading up to the general election or the early voting for the general election cycle. We will be publishing all the dates, bells and whistles, deadlines for mail-in balloting, etc. And one thing that's very important, if you did request a mail-in ballot and you're holding on to it to dear life, and you change your mind and you're like, you know what, I'm going to vote in person, you're going to have to vote a provisional ballot. Even if you bring the mail-in ballot to the polling place on election day or tomorrow, the last day of early voting, you will need to vote a provisional ballot. So if you requested a mail-in ballot, follow through with that intention. If you desire to vote in person for the general and do not want to receive a mail-in ballot, then contact the Board of Elections. Our number is 240-777-8500. And you could contact us and we'll provide instructions to get off of the permanent list. We have about 90,000 Montgomery County residents out of the 130 that requested to vote by mail on the permanent list. And a lot of times people don't remember, and then they get their ballot, and then we have all the signatures and the scanned documents. So if you request a mail-in ballot, follow through with that intention. And lastly, we have 2 ways. We have something called internet or web delivery ballot. When you request from the Maryland State Board of Elections to email you your ballot, and what you would do is you log into, the state will give you a secure login and password. You log into your account and you will download your ballot and you will fill it in. You'll print the ballot at home on an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and you mail it to us, or you put it in a Dropbox. The interesting aspect of that is once we get your ballot to Canvas, we're going to have to transpose or copy that ballot onto an official ballot, because that 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper that you printed at home or the office, our scanners cannot scan that ballot. So what's going to happen is we're going to have bipartisan teams, a Democrat and a non-Democrat, a Republican, unaffiliated, etc. And hypothetically, I will read your ballot that you mailed in by web delivery, and the other team member will fill in the ovals. And then we swap, right? Swap. I take the official ballot and they read the ballot that you printed and they read it off to me to make sure they filled out the correct bubbles. And then the staff will come and they'll review both ballots, and there's some chain of custody. And we had about 18,000 Montgomery County voters requesting a web delivery, and the vast majority are in Montgomery County. Web delivery was meant for kind of military overseas, expats overseas. I get it. If you're doing research on Mount Kilimanjaro in Madagascar, then do it. Because outside the US, we really can't control the postal system of another country.
Do
The
you
US
guys
has
have
a
a
really good
Dropbox
postal.
on Kilimanjaro?
Huh?
Do you have a Dropbox on Kilimanjaro?
No, and it makes sense to get web delivery because then you'll get an email, you'll print and you send it back. So you're not waiting for the official, packet. However, if you're in Chevy Chase, Silver Spring, Rockville, just do the traditional ballot. I understand that delay, that instant gratification, like Amazon.com, you order, I don't know, lotion or sugar, whatever it is, you'll get it in like 6 hours to 2 days. We encourage voters to vote if you're going to vote by mail. But if you're overseas, you're in the military, the web delivery is a good way to facilitate us or you to return your ballot. But if you're in Rockville, Silver Spring, you have the right to select web delivery, but remember, we have to copy transpose that on our end, which kind of, it elongates the whole Canvas process. So I just want to share that with you. And if you are one of the ones that requested a web delivery internet ballot, you could always contact us to change your mind to get the packet. And remember, with the packet, we pay postage. There's a return envelope. You get the official ballot. If you do the internet web delivery, you have to provide your own stamp, your own envelope. You have to print it, especially if you're outside of Montgomery County where you don't have access to the ballot drop boxes.
Well, thank you. A wealth of information. There's a quick question. Does the county still need people to work voter canvassing? I'm not sure what that is, but
Yeah.
explain.
So the canvas workers are the individuals that assist us with canvassing the mail-in ballots or provisional ballots. Right now, we have a solid team. What we usually do is we like to pick canvas workers from our election worker pool. The election workers, we survey each other and we try to grab like the cream of the crop, people who are very meticulous, who are very focused on detail. This is not about speed, it's about processing all of these mail-in or provisional ballots. You can request to assist, but for the general elections. Right now, we have our teams assembled, but if you're interested for the general elections, you could text the word serve to 77788. And once you're assigned a recruiter, then you could communicate with them that you're interested in working the canvas.
Terrific. Any other questions for Dr. Z, Dr. Gilberto Zelaya of the Montgomery County Board of Elections?
Yeah, there's a question. Is there anyone on the primary ballot for a non-affiliated ballot?
School board members. That's the contest for non-affiliated on the non-affiliated contest. You have the Board of Ed at large, District 2 and District 4. And then for those who are registered Republican or Democrat, you have your corresponding party contest plus the school board contest as well.
Noted. Anything else for Dr. Z? Then with that, Dr. Z, thank you very much as always. We will have you back again when we get to the next cycle.
Yep.
Because reminding people to vote is a lifelong process, as is our commitment to voting in our democracy. So thank you very much for all that information. Again, to everybody who's listening, this town hall is recorded. It is on YouTube. If you missed anything, you can go back and check to see what was said. And
there was
also,
one
of course,
question there, Matt. It says,
go ahead.
why don't the board mail us the apple? You want red apple, granny apple, green apple? Yeah, we don't do the apple ballot. That's not we're not in that business.
Right. And if you did, you would finally explode because
Yeah.
you already got way too much going on. This would be the one thin ballot more that you possibly couldn't do.
Yeah, no,
Uh,
no. Yeah,
But if you
no.
go to
So,
a polling station, folks, there are people there at every single polling station with tables handing out information. You can also go, I believe the Apple ballot is the teachers union. So if you go onto the Montgomery County MCEA, Montgomery County Education Association website, which Emily or Tim, you could put up there for folks to see. I believe they publish the Apple ballot online. You can take a look and see who they are recommending. The Renters Alliance doesn't recommend anybody. We do not support any candidate or party, but we do encourage very much all renters to vote and to pay attention to what candidates are saying, especially, obviously, as it pertains to renters' rights or the opposition to renters' rights. So keep that in mind. So, Dr. Z, thank you for joining us.
Thank
I'm
you.
now going to turn over to my leads outreach coordinators, Emily Towie and Tim Wong, to take over and address some resource information for tenants and answer any questions from tenants that are out there until the end of the town hall, which will be over in just a few minutes. So
Perfect.
thank you, everybody, and I'm going to sign off and turn it over to them. Emily.
Thank you so much. Take care.
Thank you, Dr. Z. And Tim, you're in charge, and Pat, make sure they do it right.
Tim, you want to talk about how to file code enforcement, and I'll go into Ulta?
Sure. So code enforcement is a way to make sure that you are having proper your units up to code. So things that would affect like your the conditions inside your unit, whether there's like mold, whether like your fridge is working, things like that. So the way that we recommend it is to first make a request of your manager. Say, hey, my AC isn't working, and it's this time of year that it's supposed to be working. And if they don't respond in a reasonable time, it changes depending on what the issue is. Like, let's say it's like if you're if there's some paint peeling, okay, maybe that's not an urgent issue. You can give them like maybe a week to do that. But let's say that your fridge isn't working, like that's kind of more serious. So like I would only give them a couple of days before you can make a code complaint. So I'm gonna link the websites here.
I put
you got
to the
Oh, awesome. Okay. So yeah, does anyone have any questions about that in the chat?
I just want to add to everything Tim said. So if you're having some kind of code violation, you can use after talking to property manager, you can use this link to submit a complaint. But just want to note that if you are in the incorporated city of Gaithersburg or Rockville, the Montgomery County's code enforcement doesn't have jurisdiction over you, so you're gonna need to file a complaint with the city of Rockville directly or the city of Gaithersburg, and I can link that. Also,
Awesome.
if you have any trouble with this complaint or anything, you can always reach out to us and we'll guide you in the right direction. And let me put those links in right now.
Oh yeah, good point, Emily. Another way, which it says on the website, but you can also call 311 if some people if you're not if you don't want to do it online. So another thing I wanted to talk about is forming a tenant association. So like of course if you have issues in your building, let's say you have like like an elevator is always out, your parking garage is not working, things like that. You can always make a complaint to management, but those are things that affects everyone in the building or most everyone. And that's where a tenant association can be useful. So a tenant association is just, a bunch of tenants, your neighbors getting together and deciding to meet on a regular basis and talk about issues that, that are in your building. And that's pretty much it. It's not, like a political meeting or, or like a religious, session, but it's just to address those issues. And they're really great because number one, you can be more anonymous, if you're afraid of retaliation, and number two, there's more strength in numbers. So if you want to, if you're interested in being starting a tenants association, please reach out to us, info@rentersalliance.org, and we can give you more information. We can help kickstart it, and we'll be there, you know, for the first couple meetings. So yeah, does anyone have any questions about that in the chat?
Don't
Okay.
do any questions yet, but feel free to drop them in if you think of them. Thank you, Tim. I was going to talk about the other kind of complaints. We have another resource. So again, if you're experiencing anything physical like mold, bugs, broken appliances, that's code enforcement. But if you're experiencing a different kind of issue, like you've received a 20% rent increase and you can't afford that, or there's a discrepancy on your rental ledger, you keep seeing these random charges that you're not sure what they're for. You're having an issue with your landlord, you're being harassed, you feel like you're being discriminated against, anything to do with your lease or the landlord, those complaints are gonna go to the Office of Landlord and Tenant Affairs, otherwise known as ALTA. And similar to code enforcement, they will assign you an investigator to look into the case. They'll try to do mediation between the two parties, and if they aren't able to come to an agreement, it's possible the case will be referred up to the Commission of Landlord Tenant Affairs, also known as CULTA. And once again, if you're not sure if your complaint goes under code or Ulta, you're not sure how to go about it, reach out to us. I've put our email in chat. It's info@rentersalliance.org. We're happy to guide you through that. And Pat brought up a great point. So I did include the city of Rockville and the city of Gaithersburg code complaints because, as I mentioned, Montgomery County code enforcement they don't have jurisdiction in those two cities. But for Tacoma Park, which does have their own government, and wouldn't apply under rent stabilization, and normally we consider those three cities to be exempt. However, for code enforcement complaints, Department of Housing and Community Affairs, Montgomery County does handle city of Tacoma Park complaints. So if you're in Tacoma Park, you might be used to having to go through city of Tacoma Park, but for purpose of code enforcement complaints, again, you have mold, your air conditioner is broken, you are able to use the link I provided for the Montgomery County code enforcement complaints. And let me put the link for the Ulta complaints right now.
Oh, I can do that.
Okay, thanks, Tim. Let's see. Another resource that we want to tell everyone about is our partnership with the Access to Counsel and Evictions program. That's a resource for people who meet it's supposed to serve low income tenants. So you'll have to meet the income requirements and you may qualify for a free lawyer if you are facing eviction. This ACE program is with multiple different organizations, Maryland Legal Aid, CASA, and the Homeless Person Representation Project. We work with all of those, and they can help provide free legal services. And they have asked us to let you all know they always recommend reaching out to them sooner rather than later. If it turns out that they can't take on your case, or you're not eligible for a lawyer, they'll let you know, but it's better to just find out. They could possibly point you to another organization that can help you, tell you where to go. Tim, if you could put the ACE links, but you can also call 211. Not 311 is if you have from Montgomery County when you have like a code issue, a lease issue. 211 is if you need a lawyer. And once again, if you're confused about that, just send us a message and we'll help you out. I'll just say it one more time. 211 for legal help and 311 for code enforcement and lease issues. Do we have any questions about any of those resources? Feel free to put them in the chat. If we don't have any questions, a couple reminders. This Saturday we're having an annual community picnic at Cider Mill in Gaithersburg. If you're a Gaithersburg resident, you live at Cider Mill, we'll be there this Saturday from 11:30 to 2:30. no, 11:30 to 3. We're gonna be having hamburgers and hot dogs and different tables. We're partnering with the HIP, Housing Initiative Partnership, um, as well as DHCA, Department of Housing and Community Affairs. They'll have tables there with information. We'll have information about the legal programs as well as code, ULTA, starting tenants associations, all that. So if you want to stop by, get some food and find out some renters information, we'll be there. Um, our next town hall will be May 29th. I don't think we have any speakers scheduled yet, but if you join our newsletter, you'll know what we'll be talking about and who'll be there. And if you want to join our newsletter, all you have to do is email us at info@rentersalliance.org and we'll add you to the list.
Just the correction on the cider mill barbecues from 11 to 2.
Oh, thanks, Tim.
Yeah.
Thank you. Don't come at 3, the hot dogs will be gone by then.
Yeah, you can help us clean up though.
Yeah, you can help us clean up. Yes, we had a question. It is just for cider mill only, unfortunately. But if, as Tim mentioned, we're always happy to help other tenants start tenants associations. This all began with the Cider Mill Tenants Association. So if you think that's something your apartment complex or community would benefit from, you want to get the neighbors together, you think they could all use some renter information, have a get together, reach out to us, and that's something we can help you start a tenants association and help host some events. Again, just email us if you're interested in that. Pat, do we have anything else we need to talk about?
Yeah, I just want to emphasize again the importance of voting. You heard Matt saying that we just now didn't get a bill passed and what councilman held it up. So it's important to know who you're voting for and if that council person or whomever align up with what you need. So it's just, you just can't emphasize enough to vote. Always vote, try to get anybody else you can vote. It's really all we have. It's really a good fighting tool to let council people or whomever, the county, everybody know that renters are here and we are willing to fight for what we need. So please vote.
Yeah, definitely. We had a question in the chat. What Pat was talking about was that a council member, Dawn Lukey, she was the
Yeah.
one who had proposed those like those amendments to the rent stabilization bill that
Right.
significantly weakened it by putting
Right.
that 23-year exemption. So just knowing who's aligned with renter legislation.
Our needs.
Also, Matt mentioned that Will Smith, from the Judicial Proceedings Committee in Annapolis, in the Senate, he is the one who held up the vote on our
Hello?
just cause eviction bill,
Yeah, I'm on the Zoom.
which would have allowed tenants to, which would have required landlords to provide tenants with a reason for issuing them an eviction notice or a non-renewal. And yeah, unfortunately, Senator Will Smith in the Judicial Proceedings Committee decided to not hold on a vote on that. We don't have just cause protection right now, meaning that the landlords, without any given reason, 60 days before the end of your lease, can issue you a notice to vacate. And there's essentially nothing you can do. You could have paid your rent
Yes.
on time, could have been a perfect tenant, but they don't have to provide a reason. So we are hoping that Delegate Janelle Wilkins will bring up that bill again next year and we'll all be back to testify. Really hoping to see that through, but yes, currently not in effect. So like Pat said, just important to know who you're voting for and who's going to support the issues that matter to you.
And know your rights.
Yes, ma'am.
You need to know your rights.
I think that's everything. Tim, are we ready to close?
Just a last shout out. We want to thank again Shirin and Dr. Gilberto Zelaya in the for presenting. Yeah, so I think that's it.
Yeah, thank you everyone for joining. See you back on May 29th, and please reach out to us at info@rentersalliance.org with any questions.
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you everyone. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thank you. Have a good evening.
Thanks.
Thank you.